So what we're going to do today is we'll be talking again about 5 questions. We'll be diving deep into those questions, understanding the mindset on how to solve those questions. And there's a twist this time. There would be a timer running on your screen. Okay. So in the exam, you will get around 75 seconds per question. So we'll provide 75 seconds per question in this session of the question solving as well. Okay, so you will see on your screen 75 seconds. Try to answer within those 75 seconds, and it will give you a push that is required when you are taking the exam. Okay, so let us start with the first question. Okay, as you can see, the timer is on the screen. Okay, so you will have exactly 75 seconds to go through the question. Please do attempt the question in the 75 seconds, and then we will discuss. All right. So time's up. Let us discuss. Okay. A contractor in a project to build a thermal power plant informs the project team about the delay of an equipment required to manufacture a component in the project. Okay, so what's happening? There's a contractor who has informed the project team that there would be a delay in an equipment which is required to manufacture a component. Okay. To compensate for this delay, the contractor is willing to pay for the additional temporary equipment that will keep the project on schedule and replace it later with the new component as planned. Okay, so the idea here is that the contractor is informing about a delay, and they're also compensating it with providing a temporary equipment which would take place of the new equipment which is planned to be delivered. And in the meanwhile, they would run with that equipment, and when the new equipment arrives, then they will replace it. It's a good idea. Okay, so the question is, what should the project manager do first? Right? Those of you who just went through the options, okay, and selected the one option as analyze, just an information, okay, it is not a right approach. If at all you do that, okay, be aware that the whole question, the option might be different that you see in the exam. Okay, it might not be a good approach. So my suggestion would always be to understand the question well, because it is not going to be this is straightforward always, that what is the right measure do first. Okay, it could be something else also. So keep a note on that. And even if you do see what would you do first, it may happen that they are talking about analysis in this option, and they're talking about understanding something in the other option. Okay, so understanding a problem, understanding a situation happens first, and then you do analyze. Okay, so it might happen that they will talk about facilitating a meeting to discuss about the situation and then talk about analysis. Okay, so just be a little bit aware. I just thought that I will inform you about what could go wrong when you're taking the exam as well. Okay, otherwise, let's come to the question. The question is, supplier is saying that there will be a delay in the equipment and they're also compensating for the delay. So what should you do as a project manager? Okay, no action needed as the project schedule is maintained. Good choice, right? So if my schedule is maintained, I don't need to do any action. Okay? But as a project manager, we don't jump to conclusion. We don't say that, okay, there's only one impact of a particular change. If there is a change, there could be an impact on costs, there could be an impact on quality, not just schedule. Okay, schedule is just one part of it. Okay, schedule is just one of the constraints that we have to balance in the project. right? So we know as a project manager that any change that we are currently doing could result in multiple impact on the project. Okay, so we'll not take a decision based only on the schedule. So this is not a good choice. Then we go to B. Add this temporary resource in the WBS to reflect changes. So there are some changes. So what we're doing is we are adding it into a WBS so that our plan itself changes and then we'll do something else. But the question is, should we add a resource in WBS? Answer is no. Right? WBS is work breakdown structure. Right? Work breakdown structure is a structure of all the deliverables in the project. Okay, resources are not the deliverables. Resources will be used, consumed in the project, okay, to deliver the components, to deliver the deliverables, to complete the deliverables. Right? So WBS contains only the deliverables, not the resources. Hence, not a good choice. Then you go to C. Analyze the risk associated with the contractor's proposal. So contractor is suggesting something. We would try to understand, okay, what are the risks associated with it? If we add additional equipment, what else do we need to ensure? Will my resources be trained for using this old equipment? Is it possible that the temporary equipment that they will provide might break down in the while it is running? It will impact my project even further. So any of those things can happen. So what we need to do is we need to understand that, yes, we are making a change. So we need to understand the impact of those changes. And impact of those changes means nothing but understanding the risk. Okay, so looks like a good choice. Then we go to D. Update the resource breakdown structure to reflect changes. Okay, now we said that resources do not go to WBS. Resources go to resource breakdown structure. Okay, then why is this the wrong choice? Why would I not update my resource breakdown structure if I am using an additional resources? I'm making some changes to resources and I am updating this resource breakdown structure. Why would I not do that? Yes, anyone? Why did you eliminate D? Because I can see everybody said C, which is in a way correct. But why not D? Anyone would like to discuss their thought process?
The resource is not been analyzed yet. So how we update the resource breakdown structure without analyzing the risk and everything associated with the new
Mhm.
resource? So
Okay.
that is what I think.
Okay. So what you're saying is that as of now, we don't know, right? It is just a proposal from a contractor, right? It is just a proposal from a contractor that we should use it. We have not yet analyzed it. We have not yet finalized it that yes, we will use it. Okay. So once we confirm that yes, your proposal is correct, only then we need to update it, right? And the question is, what should I do first? Right? So first I would analyze the risk associated with it. Then sitting with the team, we'll realize, okay, this option looks good. Then let us take it. It might happen that we will say, no, this option does not look good because it is very risky thing. So we will wait for 5 days, bring your new equipment, and then we'll work. Okay, or how many days it takes. Right? So that's why we will not update the resource breakdown structure immediately. If my decision says of the analysis that yes, we should use it, then I will change that. Okay, so this is not a good choice. This is best. All of you are correct, but I just gave you an idea of how do we look at the questions. We should be absolutely sure of why other three options are wrong. Okay, so whenever you are practicing your questions, try to put in time going through the explanations that we have in our mock exam platform. Try to go through the explanations and understand which option is correct, better, and why other options are wrong. Okay, it is more important to know why other options are wrong because ultimately you are going to eliminate the options in the exam. Right? So understand why exactly other options are wrong. That will prepare you for many other questions as well. Okay. Now, while we analyze this question, okay, you guys would have already noticed because we keep talking about all those things. These two options, A and C. Okay, there is some mistake in this. Okay, not A and C. But if you look at the option B and D, okay, option B talks about adding resource to a WBS. Option D also almost say the same thing, update the resource breakdown structure to reflect the changes, which means adding the resources to the RBS. These are actions. Okay, these are decisions that we are taking in the project. So whenever you see a question when it says that what should the project manager do first, okay, be a little bit cautious. Okay, don't just read the options and put the answers. It will not be a good approach. Okay, you can do it if you are running out of time at the end of third section and there are only 5 questions remaining and you have only 1 minute to do. Then you can do all those things, but don't do it regularly. Okay, while you are practicing, definitely don't do it because it's not a good practice. Okay. So, anyways, what should the project manager do first? Generally, when you see such question where it is asking what you do first, it is understanding and analysis and then taking action. Okay. These are the decisions that we are taking. That okay, we should add it. We are taking some action, right? But C is talking about analysis. Okay. So analysis before action is very important. A is talking about no action. It is very rare in project management that you will not be taking any action about anything. Okay? So very important, spot what is talking about action and what is talking about analysis. Okay. Then you would know that yes, analysis first and then action. It will be easier to solve such kind of questions. Okay. Let's move to the next one. So question number 2. Okay. Again, 75 seconds on your screen. Please attempt this in 75 seconds and then we'll discuss. All right, so let's discuss this. Okay, those who have not been able to answer it within the 75 seconds, don't be disheartened. Some questions will take more time, some questions will take less time, but do practice for this. Okay, when you practice for answering in 75 seconds, you push yourself to not relax, look for information and solve it. Okay, let us have a look at the question. A junior team member slated to be promoted to take project manager's role in the next project is keenly observing the closing activities in the current project. Okay, so there's a member who would be promoted to project manager in the next project and is currently observing the closing activities. Okay, while noticing that the project manager is recording a few activities in a document, the junior member is curious to know the advantage of documenting final project activities. So the team member is trying to understand, okay, why are we doing that? We are at the closing phase. Why do we need to document some of the activities? Okay. Now the question is, what should the project manager communicate? Okay, let's have a look. It helps in creating schedule network diagram. Okay. See, when we are at the planning stage and we're noting down some activities, where we'll sequence it, and then we will create a schedule network diagram, not at the closing stage. Okay. Closing stage, we're just noting it for maybe future reference or just to ensure that the project is closed. Okay. So not this one. Then we go to B. It helps in recording project performance metrics. See, project performance metrics should be captured at the point of monitoring and controlling. Okay, so when we talk about monitoring and controlling processes, monitoring and controlling activities, then we would talk about recording the project performance metrics. Okay, not immediately, not immediately, as in not in closing stage. Okay, so not at the closing stage, we will be talking about recording project performance metrics. So this is also eliminated. Then we go to C. It helps customers to submit invoices for payment. Customers don't submit invoices for payment. We would need to submit. Right? We are performing the project. Customer needs to make the payment. We need to submit the invoices for payment. So it does not look like a good choice either. Then we go to D. It helps archive information for future references. Yes, absolutely. That's what we do in closing. Right? So we are finalizing the whole process of the project. We are noting down the activities. Why are we doing that? So that we can archive this information for future reference. That's why we would update any document at the closing stage, right? So it looks like a very, very good choice compared to any other which were not related to closing, right? Schedule network diagram is a planning part. Recording the project performance metrics, maybe planning and monitoring and controlling part. It enables customer to submit invoices for payment, was absolutely wrong. And that's why D is the best choice. Is it clear, everyone? Especially why B is not the good choice? Because I could see some options as B.
Yes.
Yes, Amit.
Right? Okay. So now, whenever we talk about closing a project, okay, it is very important to understand that closing a project means wrapping things up. Okay, we are not checking anything. We are not completing the work. Okay, we are closing means we are formally wrapping things up. Whatever has already been done, we are just consolidating it and ensuring that we get a sign off, we get a handover, we hand over it to operations team or whoever needs to have the handover and release the resources. Right? That's the whole idea of closing, similar to what we did in initiating. Okay, in the initiating, we just captured the information and created a project charter. Okay, we didn't do any detailed analysis of anything. That we did in planning. So it is very important to understand what happens at initiation and what happens at closure. Okay, closure is formally wrapping things up in the project. Okay, so what are the activities that we do in general? See, don't try to find sequence of what happens and can you build a sequence of 1 2 3 4 5, and this is exactly how we close the project. Okay, there's nothing like that. We have already discussed during training, and I'm just repeating this because many times there is a question, okay, can you give me a flow chart of what happens in the closing of the project? There's no flow chart. Okay, every project is unique, right? For specific projects, you will be following different activities. Okay, so nobody provides that flow chart of the activities or one after the other, what should be the activities, right? But there are certain general guidelines which we should be aware of. Okay, and then if at all we have to understand what would happen first or what would happen later, we can do that while we are looking at the options. Compare the two options and see which one logically looks better to be done first than the other. Right? So what we generally do in closing the project, okay, we need to obtain formal acceptance on everything that has been done. Okay, now when you are showing it to the customer, when you are validating the scope, when you are receiving an acceptance from the customer on individual deliverables, it happens, it's a part of monitoring and controlling activity. Right? Validate scope process. Here, when we are talking about closing process, we are talking about all deliverables at once. Okay, so we are looking at the entire project. We are not looking at one or two deliverables. They might accept it, they might reject this. There's no question of rejection here. Okay, there's only a question of whether all the documents are there or not. Right? So there's no question of rejection. Any rejection acceptance that has had to happen has already happened during monitoring and controlling activity. Now we are closing it. So we are closing the entire project or maybe closing the entire phase. Right? So we are talking about all deliverables at once. So we have to obtain that formal acceptance. What is a formal acceptance? Take a printout, take a sign off. Right? If you don't want to take a printout or it is a remote work and you guys don't work like that, then do it on software. Okay, whatever your company follows a process or policy, right? You have to ensure that formal acceptance is obtained. Right? Consolidate the lessons learned throughout the project. Okay, so whatever lessons that has been learned throughout the project, you have already captured it in the lessons learned register. Okay, it may happen that one team member captured in another page, somebody captured in something else, somebody created another file, someone created another file at some other resources, right? It may happen because different team working at different places, they might create some different kind of documents, which they should not, okay, but it might happen. Or even if they are creating the same document, you would need to consolidate it to ensure that there are no repeated lessons captured. Okay, so at the end of the project, what you need to do is you need to consolidate all these lessons together and update the lessons learned repository of your organization, which is an organizational process asset. Okay, so we are not creating the lessons, we are not capturing the lessons, we are consolidating all the lessons that we have learned throughout the project. Okay. Then properly archive the relevant project documentation, including final reports and closure documents. Okay, so whatever we have, we need to archive it. We need to store it at a proper place. Okay, and we need to manage that artifact. Okay, artifact management is a very important part of the exam. So we need to ensure that these artifacts are properly stored, named, shared with everybody that yes, this is what we have done. We have stored our project files at this particular location. Right? Then release the project resources, team members, equipments, facilities, whatever you have. Okay, whatever you have taken from functional manager, resource manager, IT managers, return it to them. Okay, team members might go to different project, they might go back to operations work, right? Equipment that you have used might be used in another project, or it might be used in operations work, or it might be discarded for not use. Right? Whatever it is, we will release it from our project at the closing stage. Then recognize and celebrate the achievements of the project team. Okay, ensure that you celebrate. Okay? When you formally release them from the project, they are now going. You know that. Okay, so it is very important to celebrate the achievements. Okay, project might be successful, it might not be successful, but the efforts that you have put in is very important. It is very important to ensure that you build a camaraderie. Okay, people should be able to remember the fond memories of the project along with the lessons learned. So do celebrate. Okay, very important part of closing the project, an important part of exam as well. You will see one question where they're talking about recognizing the efforts and celebrating at the end of the project. Then complete all financial activities. Okay, whatever payments that you have to do, whatever budgeting is to be finalized, reconciliation, whatever is to be done, do it. Ensure that all the payments are settled, all the suppliers are paid. Okay, so the financial activities are also completed, which means carrying out a financial closure. Okay, then you may conduct post-implementation review, but it is not about whether the product is working or not. Okay, because that has already been done in monitoring and controlling state. If you do that, it is a part of monitoring and controlling activity. A closing activity is just checking as an overall project, okay, whatever objective that we had mentioned in the project charter, whatever objective that we had discussed in the initiation stage, okay, have we been able to meet that or not? Right? So conducting that post-implementation review is also important. You may do it to check whether your outcome meets the objective or not. Then communicate the closure of the project to all relevant stakeholders. Okay, everyone who needs to know should know that the project has been closed, especially operations team, especially customer, so that they don't trouble you and your team with operation related problem. See, once you have completed the project, once you have delivered the project, once the customer has signed the acceptance, then it is not your duty or your project team's duty to resolve operational complaints. There will be complaints and there should be a separate team handling them. Okay, so it is very important that you communicate as well that this closure has happened. See, you will take a sign off, you will take a handover, but it will be with a few handful of people, right? There are other stakeholders who might not be involved in the sign off and everything. They need to know that the project has been closed and you are out of it so that they can talk to the right people at the right time. And that would help in resolving the problems faster rather than they coming to you, you talking to operations team, then sending some person. It will be a complex process and it will get delayed. Right? So operational issues can be resolved quickly by talking to operations team. That's why that handover is important. Right? Then ensure that all the legal and regulatory requirements are met. Okay, we are not left with anything. If you have to had a license signed off, you have to return something, you have done all those things, and any legal or regulatory requirements are also completed. Then finally, formally close the project by obtaining a sign off from operations, sponsor, client, okay? Whoever you think, your team thinks, your organization thinks are important, take a sign off from all of them so that you can update this document finally saying that project is formally closed, okay? All these activities that we discussed are a part of closing process growth, okay? These activities do not happen in sequence, but it is important to note that while you are comparing the options, okay, just compare and see which one logically looks to happen first and which one should happen later. Okay, there's no sequence as such which somebody can say that yes, this is exactly how every project will be closed. It is project specific, it is scenario specific, it is situation specific. Choose your answers accordingly. Okay, let's move to the next question. Okay, question number 3, again 75 seconds. Attempt this question, then we'll discuss. All right, so let's discuss this. The project sponsor in a project has suggested a change that could significantly improve the functionality of product being developed by the team. The team is excited about the changes as it provides opportunities to work on some exciting new technology. What should the project manager do? Right? So sponsor has suggested a change which will improve the product and the team is also happy. Right? So there's a change that is helping your product and helping your people as well. So what should you do? Follow the integrated change control process. Absolutely right. So whenever we have a change, we need to follow a change control process, whatever the process is. Right? So looks like a very good choice. Then we go to B. Inform the customer of potential delay due to the change. Right? See, the change could result in delay, but we don't know as of now. And we also don't know what else will it impact. Right? So informing the customer immediately might not be the right thing. Okay, so what should the project manager do? I have a better choice. We'll follow the integrated change control process. Then we go to C. Communicate to all stakeholders about the change. That is also important probably, but may not be to all stakeholders. Okay, so whenever you are answering questions, you should definitely spot these words. Okay, these are very key words. Communicate to relevant stakeholders or communicate to all stakeholders. You may not want to communicate to all the stakeholders about all the changes, right? But relevant stakeholders, definitely. But that is a separate part. Here, even if it was relevant stakeholders, do I need to communicate it before talking about the changes, before doing this? Probably not. Okay, so is this something that I'll do? Yes. But is there a better choice? A, yes, available. So I will eliminate C. Then I go to D. Update the work breakdown structure. Okay, this might also be required to be done. Okay, if that change is changing the whole deliverables, okay, or changing the work package item, then we may need to change the WPS. But as of now, we don't know that. Okay, and first let us follow the integrated change control process. Let it be approved by the change control board, and then we will update the work breakdown structure. So whether I am informing the customer about the delay, communicating to stakeholders about the change, or updating the work breakdown structure. Okay, all these three options would happen after we follow the integrated change control process. Now, very important part. Okay, even if the question is not saying what should the project manager do first, they're not saying that. Okay? Still, you are choosing that option which is directly related to the activity at hand. There's a change, we'll follow integrated change control process. There's a change, will you inform the customer of potential delay? Probably or probably not. Will you communicate to all the stakeholders? Maybe not. Will you update the vulnerability structure? Maybe not. Right? So although it might look like, okay, this is happening in sequence, but if you look at option B, C, and D, these are the options that you might not do. Okay, so the question is, what should the project manager do? I have a better choice, which is directly related to what I would do in the project. So if there's a change, will I definitely follow integrated change control process? Yes. Should I definitely inform the customer or communicate the stakeholders or update the work breakdown structure? Might or might not be. Right? So we have doubt in these three options. We are sure about A. That's why we are going with A. Okay. Even if the question is not asking about the first, we are always looking at direct activity relevance. Okay, which is typically the first thing that you would do. That's why A is better than B, C, and D. Is it clear, everyone? Any question? Okay. Now, if there are no doubts, okay, if you look at this question and the option A, okay, the same option can be shown in different ways. It would still mean the same thing. Okay, follow the integrated change control process. Or they might say, analyze the impact of changes suggested by the sponsor. Right? Also a good thing to do. Or they might say, conduct a brainstorming session to understand the change and its impact. We could do that. See, ultimately, what are we doing? We are understanding the change, we are analyzing the change, and we are following a process. Okay, either of the options are good. Or it says, facilitate a meeting between team and sponsor. Okay, option could be anything. Okay, there's no one choice that is definitely that you will do. Okay, follow the integrated change control process, have a brainstorming meeting, discuss with team and the sponsor. Okay, talk to the sponsor about it. These all mean that there is a change and you are not jumping to make that change just because sponsor has asked you. for it, just because it will improve the functionality, just because the team is excited about it. Okay? Whatever be the case, whatever be our initial understanding about the change, we would need to follow that process. We would need to discuss, we need to understand, we need to document it. Only then, if it is approved, then we'll follow the change. Okay, so do look for these variations. Okay, whenever you are solving, understanding what that option means is the most important thing. That's what we should do. Okay, let's go to question number 4. Okay, answer in 75 seconds, and then we'll discuss. All right, so let's discuss this. Just before the product demonstration in the iteration review, a team member informs that the definition of done for one of the user stories was not met. The product owner is disappointed with the team. Okay, so what's happening? There was a definition of done required to be met for every user story, which should be the case, but it has not met this time. So the product owner is disappointed. What should the agile project manager do? So what would happen if there is supposed to be something that is required to be done and the team has not done it? It's the general thing, right? Specific situation is about definition of done. But when you think about it generally, it is just that there was supposed to be done, something was supposed to be done, but the team has not done it. What should the project manager do? Let's see. Reprimand the team for neglecting definition of done. Okay. It might be done in real life scenarios. Okay, you may be a little bit harsh. You may be shouting on your team that why did they not do it? Okay, but is it the best choice? Probably not. Okay, and generally you would have solved so many questions by now that you already know that this is something that we don't do. Okay? Does not look like a very good choice. We can eliminate it, or if you are confused, we can keep it also. Okay, we'll look for a better choice. If you do find it, we'll pick that up and we will find it. Okay, I don't think reprimanding the team or shouting at the team is a good choice. Okay, then we go to B. Reassign the authorities and responsibilities within the team members. Okay, now again, this is an action, this is a decision that we are taking, which should be supported by some information in the question. Okay, so what is the problem? The problem is the team has not met the definition of done. Is it because the roles and responsibilities or the authorities were not proper? If yes, then you will do this. If no, then you will not do this. And for now, we don't know it. That's why we can eliminate it. Then we go to C. Ask for additional time before the iteration review can be conducted. Because what is happening? The definition of done is not yet met. Right? So I'm saying that my team has not yet completed everything that is required to be done. So give me some time. Okay, and then let's conduct the iteration review. That would not be right. Okay, iteration review happens at the end of iteration. So if this time box represents the iteration and this is the start of the iteration, this is the finish of iteration, towards the finish is where the product review would happen. If you ask for extra time, which means you are moving into the next iteration space, that would not be right. Okay, hence we will eliminate this. Then we go to D. Discuss the issue in the upcoming retrospective to plan improvement. What are we doing here? We are trying to understand that, okay, there was some problem. At the review, we cannot do anything. This product or this user story would definitely be rejected. But after the review, let's connect and discuss how we can ensure that the same problem does not happen in the next iteration also. Good choice, right? Hence, we'll go ahead with that, right? So these are very straightforward kind of questions, not a very not a very tricky kind of questions. Okay, which is also important. You will see a lot of such questions in the exam, which will test you just your general understanding of the agile terms. Okay, so understand these agile concepts well. What are these concepts? Review, definition of done, retrospective, right? So always whenever you are solving questions from the mock exams, okay, I have tried to balance it in a way that I do use multiple different terms in the question that you solve. Okay, you will see a lot of terms in a lot of different questions. Okay, to ensure that all the terms at least you see it once while you are solving the questions, so that you can review it later, right? So always spot these terms that you are not aware of, or just check whether you know all those terms or not. Okay, that's a good way of reviewing your questions. Okay, so what's a review? Review is a demonstration of the product at the end of iteration. Iteration and sprint are same. Definition of done is a checklist to help ensure your team, every team member know that these are the things required to be done. So that when they say that, okay, we have completed our work, they would just verify it with a checklist saying that, yes, everything that was supposed to be done is also done. That's why it is called definition of done. Retrospective typically happens at the end of iteration after the review, where you discuss how you will improve in the next iteration cycle. Okay, but the retrospective can happen at any other point also. Maybe you are doing some work and ad hoc way you realize that, okay, let us come together, let us discuss, we have done a lot of work, a lot of lessons we have already learned, so let us not wait for the end of iteration, we can have retrospective in between also, if the team and the project manager thinks that this is the right time to do it. Okay, so at the end of iteration, yes. In between also in a ad hoc manner, yes. And it might also happen that your iteration duration is 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks. Okay, and you don't want to wait for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, because there are so many lessons that you learn in 1 month or 1.5 months that it is too late. And at the end of retrospective, team will not remember a lot of things. If you think like that, then what you can do is you can have a frequency of retrospective at every 2 weeks also. Even if your iteration or sprint duration is 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you can plan to have retrospective at every 2 weeks, at every week also. Okay, if you think that you are learning enough lessons and you want to have a improvement cycle of 1 week or 2 week or 3 week, you can decide that. Okay, so typically it happens after the iteration review, but it can happen at any point of time and it can happen with any frequency as well. Okay, so don't keep in your mind that retrospective only happens at the end of iteration. Okay, so these concepts are very important to understand. Okay, there is one video on YouTube that I have uploaded where I have discussed about 100 agile concepts. Okay, it kind of covers everything that is required for PMP. Okay, so do go through that video. It will help you. You can go through it maybe 1 or 2 times to just keep on revising the concept, just to check whether you know all those concepts or not. Okay. Any questions in this? Anyone? If not, then let's go to the last question of the day. Okay. Attempt this and then we'll discuss. Okay, so let's discuss this. One of the key stakeholders who forms a part of change control board is surprised with the changes in cost baseline by the project manager without information. Okay. The project manager asserts that the changes were necessary to ensure timely completion of the project and was duly informed to other members of the board. Okay. Stakeholder is not happy with the response from the project manager. Okay. See, there are some words which are very important to understand because it changes the meaning. Okay. In our real life, we might be talking a little bit casually, okay, and we might use a word that might not exactly mean the same thing because we have a chance to explain ourselves in real life. Okay, here you have only 75 seconds, and whatever information is given, it needs to be crisp. Okay, so every single word means exactly what it is supposed to be literally mean. Okay, so it was duly informed. It means that it was just informed. Okay, that I am making this change. It was not requested. You didn't go for approval. Okay, it only means that you have informed. So there are some words which are very important to understand. Okay, all right. So what should the project manager have done to avoid the issue? Okay, so what is the issue at hand? The issue is that a person from change control board is saying that I was not informed about the changes, still the changes were made. Project manager says that those changes were important, otherwise my project would have got delayed. Right? So now the question is that what should the project manager have done to avoid this? How would you ensure that a stakeholder is not becoming not happy? Okay, so let's see. A, discuss the changes with stakeholders before making changes. Probably, right? If you discuss with the stakeholders about before making the changes, they might become happy, okay, about it. We don't know that. Okay, it's a good thing to do. Not a bad thing to do. Stakeholder is a part of change control board. You would discuss the changes before making any change. B, raised a change request to the change control board before following the change control process. What does this mean? It means that you should have raised a change request and then followed the change control process, whatever the process says. Okay. Now, A is also a decent choice, but B is a little bit more formal, little bit more aligned to how we are supposed to work whenever there are some changes. Okay. It does not say that you should do exactly this thing, but it says that, okay, let us have a change request, let us follow the change control process, whatever the process be. A is a little bit loose in terms of saying that, okay, we will discuss the changes before making the changes. Just discussion might not help. If you are making some changes, we need approvals. Okay, hence A is not that good a choice. B is good. Then we go to C. Analyze the impact of changes in cost baseline before making the change. See, even if the project manager had analyzed the impact of changes, okay, it would still come to a case because you're not going for that change control process. You're just informing the change control board that I'm going ahead with the changes, and you're not informing one of the key stakeholders. Right? So the problem would still have arisen even if you had analyzed the impact of changes. Right? This option is wrong. Now, do you remember why I said in the first question when we were discussing that don't just look at the options and pick up an option? Analyze the impact of changes in cost baseline before making the change is a very true statement, okay, which is correct in general. But this scenario for this question, this is not a good choice. Okay, raising a change request is better. Then we go to D, used contingency reserve in the project. We don't know that. Right? Whether the contingency reserve would have solved the problem, whether the contingency reserve was good enough to do that, and then changes were not required, we don't know about that. So we can eliminate this. Okay? Contingency reserve are for specific purposes, which is those risks which are low in priority, okay, for which we don't want to prepare a response. We just say that, okay, preparing a response will take a lot of time for these low priority, low impact, low probability risk. Hence, let us keep some contingency reserved. So we'll add those risks into risk register, but we'll not plan a response for it. And for that, we keep a contingency reserve. Okay. Here, none of those are being discussed. So we don't know whether contingency reserve would have solved the problem or not. That's why we have eliminated. B is the best choice of all. Is it clear, everyone? especially why A is not correct. Just a quick confirmation, clear? All right, I can see in the chat box already. Okay, so there were a few things that we learned today. Okay, there were a few things that we revised. We have been discussing about it. Understand, analyze, and then take action or decision. Okay, that's the flow of work. You have to spot that. Okay, never ever just read the options and select the choices. Okay, it's a bad practice. Don't do it now. In the exam, at the third section, if you are running out of time, you have to do 5-6 questions in 1 or 2 minutes. Then probably yes, it might help. Okay, because that's a good strategy at that point of time, because you don't have time to read the questions, read the options, feel whatever you are feeling is, go ahead with that if you're running out of time. Okay, but if that's not happening, please don't do that. It's a bad thing to do, because you will get confused. You will read the option, then you'll go back to the question, then again you will come back to options. You will be spending a little bit more time while you are trying to save the time. Okay, as you can see here, analyzed, discussed. Okay, still both the options are wrong. Okay, B was the best choice. Okay. Read the question, take a pause of 1 or 2 seconds, understand the situation, understand what the question is asking, answer the question. If you follow this process, you will follow a set process throughout the 180 questions in the exam. Okay, that will help you more than anything else. And remember to compare the options, eliminate the options. That is the faster way of doing things. Okay, rather than trying to apply some tips and tricks into the exam. Okay, it is not about answering PMP questions. Okay, you will. I mean, it is important, but it is more important that have you learned about how the project manager really solves the problem in real life. Okay? That is more important. Certification will happen 1 week or 2 weeks later, 1 month or 2 months later. It will happen. But what you learn from the training, what you gain from these discussions, that are more important. Okay. So thanks a lot for your time, everyone.